Hello and welcome to Positive Parenting. I'm Deanne Conrad, Community Relations Supervisor for the Sioux Falls School District. We're thankful that you're joining us here today on Positive Parenting. This program is a joint venture between the Sanford professionals, the medical and child development professionals at Sanford Health, and also the Sioux Falls School District educators. And so we are grateful to have you here today. We're going to be talking about a topic that we really wish we didn't have to address, but it is a current reality of ours. School violence, and we want to have a conversation about how to help parents have a conversation with their children. Oftentimes we have situations that come across the news networks about violence in other parts of the U.S. in other schools, and we want to have that conversation so that people are comfortable talking with their children and helping them through those feelings that they might have. So we have guests here joining us today. And Becky, we'll get started with you if you just introduce yourself, please.
Yes, my name is Becky Plugi. I'm a therapist with Sanford Psychiatry and Psychology Clinic here in Sioux Falls.
Okay, thanks for being here today, Becky.
And I'm Jamie Knoll, the Assistant Superintendent with the Sioux Falls School District in charge of administrative services.
Thanks both of you for joining us here today. I know in the Sioux Falls School District, something we are looking at constantly is situations that happen around the country. Thankfully, we have not had a major situation here in Sioux Falls, but not far from here, there was a school shooting down in Harrisburg a couple of years ago, and so the reality exists. It's one of our current realities of the day.
That's an obvious concern with any of the school administrators, something that we prepare for, plan for, but we hope we never have to utilize. So it's a significant thing that we keep in mind and work with and put a lot of things in place to be able to account for, but we hope never needs to be used.
Yeah, we do a significant amount of training and not only training for staff, which is very in-depth, but also training our students about how to respond if there is an act of violence at their building. Those trainings are critical to keeping children safe and as much as possible out of harm's way.
And the big message that we continue to put out to our public and to our parents, and we've sent this out multiple times over the last several weeks, months, is to see something, say something, because with our circumstances, our information will truly come from parents and students. They're the ones that inform our principals, they're the ones that inform our counselors, our school resource officers, which is another incredible program and agreement that we have with the city of Sioux Falls to keep our students safe. But it's really see something, say something. It's students and parents talking to us so that we know what's going on in the school, so we can intervene before a situation becomes a situation that we would all regret.
Right. We are in constant contact, and it's probably daily that we're having conversations about potential of school violence or threats of that nature. Not specific, generally not daily in Sioux Falls, but we do have those situations that we're notified of.
Yeah, and these things are talked about, you're correct, daily. We do go through and just scenarios or conversations of things that we can make better. Calls from buildings just on, hey, can we do this differently or can we change this? Conversations with our school resource officers, and many of which may seem routine to people, but it's something that all builds together into one plan that we have to be able to keep our students safe.
Right. As a parent, I know I feel a little bothered by the fact that we have to have these conversations. But it is a reality of today. I wish my children were not exposed to the types of news stories and such that happen across the country. Do you see, I mean, again, we're thankful we haven't had a significant situation here in Sioux Falls, but do you see families and children that are having difficulty with really processing the information about an event that happened somewhere else?
Well, absolutely. I think a lot of times social media plays a part in that, watching a lot of the television broadcasts for lengthy periods of time. And yeah, it brings it home. They start thinking about their schools and what they would do in that situation. And if they're prone to anxiety already, that really amps it up. And yeah, it definitely see that.
Right. And before we got started with this program, we were talking about, some of the stigmas out there of seeking mental health counseling. I do hope we get past that stigma, because it's if your eyes are bad, you see an eye doctor.
Right.
If your thought processes are challenged by things you see in the media, you should see a mental health person. Are we making any gains in terms of trying to reduce that stigma?
I do think we are. I think parents love their kids, they're concerned about their kids, and they do the best they can. And some of them are very good about wanting to have those conversations with kids. For others, it's more difficult. And so they are reaching out more to, I think, the school counselors, mental health therapists outside of school, and just other resources that can provide for their child's needs with things.
And we really do partner a lot with our counselors, our school counselors. Yes, they're doing scholarship, encouraging kids to apply for scholarships in colleges and those types of things, but they're doing a whole lot more with really understanding children and students, where they're at and what their needs are, and then that partnership with our public providers as well.
And I don't think our community always realizes, because we live in a place that we have so many resources with the different institutions that are here, to be able to provide those services to our students is incredible. And you can't find that everywhere.
Right.
And so with the counselors that we have in our school buildings, we have those there obviously, but they'll refer on to multiple different entities within our community to just give that provided support. And the parents can talk to a school counselor about seeking out some of those opportunities. But there's just a wealth of opportunities within our community that'll provide that mental health, mental stability, somebody that they can talk to and work through that. And I know sometimes it's probably difficult. I hear that from the parents, that they're afraid, they don't know what to do, but they're also a little bit timid or afraid to admit to somebody else that they may not, because they feel it's part of their parenting. And it's really not. It's just something that they need some help and assistance, and that can happen to anyone. Right. But we have so many of those things right here in our community that are available for any family to be able to utilize.
Right. We do encourage those conversations to come to school counselors or any trusted adult at the schools. But we're kind of a triage center, because that's not necessarily our expertise. And so when they come to you, how are you helping children and families work through these feelings of anxiety about school situations and things like that?
Well, first of all, I have a conversation usually with the parents about where they're at with the situation, because kids feed off their emotions a lot. So want to make sure that they're as calm as can be, or are ready for that conversation. Also, a lot of times having the kids take the lead with things. Sometimes parents think it has to be real complicated, and a lot of times they have questions, and having them take the lead with the questions and answering those. What concerns do you have? What would make you feel better? Those types of things. And it also depends on their age a lot of times as well. You're going to have a different conversation with an elementary student than you are with a high school student, if you're even able to have a high school student conversation.
Right. That would be the first hurdle to get across, is having that conversation with the high school student. Let's talk about that age appropriateness. As you said, elementary student, you're going to have a little more guarded questioning and that type of thing. And then at a high school level, something that, there's a thought process that develops as children develop as well. But what encouragement could you give to parents about how to have those conversations, different conversations, and maybe you have an elementary, middle, and a high schooler, you're sitting around the table. Is that the right place so everybody hears the same conversation? Because sometimes that's easiest, if you have the opportunity to sit down, maybe you can't get 3 different opportunities to talk to different grade levels or age levels, but that importance. What encouragement can you give to parents?
Well, sometimes those conversations do occur when everyone's together, but I would try to do more of an individualized conversation. The older ones are going to tend to talk more about what they've talked about with their friends or social media, or what, you know, they know a lot more details. They have a lot more opinions, from anything from gun control to what people should have been doing or not doing. Whereas elementary kids, they don't have usually quite that amount of insight unless their parents are having CNN running all day, and then they're exposed to some of that. But taking what their questions are and helping them process. Watch for if they are having, you know, a lot of anxiety. They keep bringing it up. They're having headaches and stomach aches, or not comfortable with going to school. Those types of things.
Yeah, you said something that struck me is a lot of times we parents think it needs to be complex, but sometimes we're missing the very basic warning signs, as you talked about, those warning signs of anxiety, of headaches, stomach aches. All right, do we really have a headache or a stomach ache, or is this our go-to complaint because we have a bigger concern about going to school? So you do see those types of things surface.
Yes, definitely we see those surface, and then we have to explore a little bit more about what's going on with that. A lot of times it goes back to talking about what you were sharing about the policies of the school and what they feel comfortable with to be safe, such as, you know, the doors get locked, reminding of the things they know. We don't process things as well when we're anxious, and so reminding, especially the elementary students, this is what we do. The adults are here to keep you safe, and this is our plan. And you know, there's different ways kids process things. You can have them talk about it, write about it, draw about it. All kinds of different ways that kind of help them with that.
And in 10 years' time, we've significantly changed our processes, improved our processes in terms of student safety with those key components of locking doors. And
we've built in so many components, and parents realize, especially if they've had some younger children that have gone through, that things have changed over the last 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Significantly changed. The school resource officer program that we have in the buildings is just incredible, and that's a partnership between the schools and the city of Sioux Falls. But in several of these circumstances, the child will go up and talk to the school resource officer and tell them about the things because they built that relationship. So that's a vital component of that it is not just school officials, it's other people within their community, whether that's a clergy person or if it's a school resource officer, a parent. They just need to talk to someone about that. But we have changed a lot of the protocols within the schools, many of which it used to be that they could walk right in and walk into the office and talk to people. We've had to secure those entrances so that individuals will need to check in. We can verify some things, give them some identification, direct them into the office area or where they need to go appropriately. And there's been so many other things that we have changed too, also in providing services to the students. So like a student assistance team. When they do have, or a teacher starts to see that there's some struggles with this child, they can refer them at all levels, whether that be elementary, middle school, high school, to a student assistance team who will then seek out resources either in the community or reach out to the parent and talk to the parent. But so much of it is helping as a group. It's just not an isolated person. It's not just that they will come in and talk to the building principal.
One person.
Or to a counselor. It's a multitude of people.
Right, which is hopefully comforting to that student because they may not take the action to go, as you said, directly to the principal, but it's whomever they've built a relationship with. And then we've done that significant amount of training to those people who are resources to say, okay, you know, what's just a conversation and what's something else that needs to be shared farther down the line so that we can continue to provide those resources.
And we obviously work closely with a lot of those entities within our community. And there's things that parents will have to agree to or sign off as far as sharing of that information. But when they do that, then we can work closely with those providers to help the child. And a lot of times that's what it is, just to step over that hurdle or stigma of something may be wrong or maybe I'm doing something wrong as a parent. And that's not the case. It's just that there's other people that can help and provide those services. It's not the same as it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. Kids have access to so much more information now that they've never had before.
Right. Well, that being positive and negative.
Yes.
Social media, gosh, wouldn't we all love to rewrite the rules on social media? But it is both a help and a hindrance sometimes to us as school officials.
Social media has, and we've sent out multiple reminders to parents that sometimes some kids will put things on social media they just don't think, and they're putting things out there that they can't take back. And once it's there for anybody to see, whether that be police, other students, school officials. And so sometimes they just don't think of what they're putting out there and saying, and it's things that they would rarely ever say to somebody face to face, or they realize it's just not appropriate for a school setting,
Right.
but they made that comment, and once they do, it's too late to just take it back. And that's been a difficult part with some of the police situations we've dealt with, where they make a comment on there that is considered to be threatening. And when that's made, it is a significant and very serious situation. It'll be taken seriously, and they find themselves in a bad situation in a very quick hurry.
Right.
Some of those can be life-altering situations in a
Right.
very quick hurry.
It is a judgment call that one small minute of time where you're lacking judgment and a student makes some comment that they think is funny and somebody else doesn't think it's funny, and it kind of comes back around. Social media, I know you mentioned it too, that it's one of the things that you deal with as well.
Well, absolutely. From mental health standpoint, a lot of times there's bullying that goes on. There's some, like you were saying, they put things out there and then somebody will contact the parent because the child didn't have a conversation with their parent about being worried or upset about something, and then they post something and, well, it wasn't exactly what they meant, or they were just feeling that way, but we have to take it seriously. Self-harm and suicidal threats or thoughts, or even just threatening things that they were mad at their friend that day, but it can be good with social media sometimes, as far as encouragement and quotes and
Right.
Reaching out to others, but double-edged sword with some of those
Absolutely.
things.
And they do have that ability to talk with others so easily, and it's so readily available. They can pick up a phone and be able to contact hundreds of different individuals. But a lot of times with their friends, they carry on some of these teen conversations or youth conversations that adults wouldn't have that same type of conversation. But instead for them, it's now recorded, and they can do it in what they feel like being a secluded room where nobody else can see it, but yet everybody can see it. And so sometimes just having that conversation with their parents. But it's also a wealth of information for parents. What is my child going through that I'm just not aware of? And so having some of those agreements sometimes that I am going to look at your social sites and things like that. And even with my own children, we made those agreements that I can go on and look anytime, and that sometimes makes them think a little differently.
Right.
Absolutely, and I think that is a good thing, and that's a protection that you can put into place. They don't always appreciate it, but it's a good thing.
And then you have to follow through with doing that as well. Just saying you're going to do it and then not doing it, or doing it in secrecy, taking their phone and I like to just sit with my kids in their presence so they see me actually looking at what they're talking about, and then implementing consequences if there's something that is a concern or a challenge, and certainly there's going to be if it impacts the school, there's going to be school consequences, if not legal consequences. And in those cases of just bad judgment call, or why did you say this or that, you do have to take that time, so that they see, oh, she's serious, she's actually going to do that. Which, that might be a strong-armed parenting tactic, but in the bottom line, I mean, that's kind of what we have to be doing these days.
Absolutely. There's a lot of teachable moments through those things, because sometimes your kid is being the bully or is not really handling things real great, and you get a certain side maybe from them, and you as a parent you think, oh wow, they're the victim, and then you look at the conversation and wait a minute, we need to talk about how you treat people. This wasn't appropriate. There's a lot of teachable things through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And
we had found so many times too that most of the situations we dealt with, they're also being discussed somewhere on the social media. So a lot of times parents can be ahead of that or see that, or when we've shown the parents the social media sites and the comments being made, it puts it into a little bit of a different light for the parents. And it is, the police, the schools take those things very seriously, especially if it's a threatening. Now obviously we'll work with all of those, and some are not school issues, but it's still wise that parents are aware of them because they may be home issues. I mean, it always will impact the parents and the family. Some of the things are not school relevant, but we still try to make sure the parents know that information and share it with them so that they're aware.
Yeah, and I appreciate too some of the school things. I know some of the middle schools have held things just as a teaching mechanism for the parents, because a lot of parents have no idea what their kids are looking at, or the different apps, or how they work, and having that training can help them as well.
you know, a word that comes to mind as we're discussing this is just partnership and partnering. And you know, we talk in education about you know, parents being partners in education, and gosh, you can be a partner in a lot of different ways, and we need that support from parents where you know, if they're identifying that their child has had you know, something happening at home, even just letting the school know so that we can be watching for additional things that happen. You know, or you know, perhaps they've had a family member who's been a victim of something, and then that, you know, they bring that to school with them, and that becomes, and then maybe there's some discipline or situation that comes about because of that. The child is not able to process and handle that information as well. So that partnership, talk about partnership between the schools and the city, but the schools and the parents, we need to be together.
And you're right. I mean, some of those programs that our counselors especially provide, or services provide, just to talk about some of the social media things, because parents don't know. I don't have much for social media sites. Other things keep me busy where I just don't have that, but yet I still need to know about it, and we still utilize some of that because we have to be able to communicate with our kids and parents and be aware of those things. And our counselors provide some of those services and just to update parents, hey, this is what some of these things are, and just that information, but also to give them resources that they can reach out to and talk to, because that's just as vital, or just as important. But our community does have a wealth of those resources.
Yeah, we are lucky in that regard, and the partnership, I think, is strong in many facets, and that only is of benefit to our students and our parents as well. Once a student has gotten into a situation or has found themselves in a situation, how do we reverse that? Hopefully, I mean, yes, we're going to have some consequences, school consequences and things like that, but is it possible to reverse that and help them see the error of their ways, if you will?
Oh, absolutely. I think so. There's a lot of impulsive kids that, you know, you give them a few more years and they wouldn't have said or done what they did at that time. So I definitely think so. You know, it's a partnership, like you said. If you have the school reinforcing things, parents, if you have a mental health counselor, or if they have some skills maybe they need to work on, or addressing some of the reasons, or may need to dig deeper why they were saying or doing what they were doing, and help them with that. But definitely can look at turning some of those things around. And
we with many of our things that are discipline related, we do provide a component in there to be able to reduce those, most often to reduce that suspension or the discipline if they agree to counseling, or to meet with a counseling or an assessment, so that we can help to determine and work with the family to say, you know what, we understand this has happened, and sometimes with youth, they think in the moment. They just don't have those life experiences to know lifelong, all right, there's significant consequences. They think in that moment. We do provide opportunities for them to be able to reduce those consequences if they'll work with a counselor, or if they'll work with, you know, some type of a counseling service. And most often those will not be the Sioux Falls School District per se. It's just partnerships that we have with our community, because they'd be a better professional that way to help and intervene.
Right.
A big factor with that, though, is parents and their involvement and their attentiveness to that process. That's gonna be a big
Make or break.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we're coming up on the end of our time. Any final words of encouragement for parents who might find themselves in this situation? They're having a conversation with their children about something that's happened in another part of the country, something that's happened in their own school.
There are resources available. Talk with the school, talk with mental health providers. You're not in this alone. That's what
Just reach out.
Absolutely.
And our key with the school district does go back to that see something, say something, because our greatest resource is our community and our parents and our students. Most of the things that we're going to be aware of and intervene on in appropriate timing is because of that. And students know when somebody else is struggling and they've maybe changed friendships or other things are going on. Students know that. And for them to be able to go in and talk to an adult, whether that be their parent, counselor, administrator, SRO, somebody, and then for that adult to make sure that they act on that to get it to the right person to be able to help. But the see something, say something has been a critical component for us to be able to help resolve some of these issues before they do become bigger issues.
Yeah, we could count on several situations that we've used that where people have come forward and said, hey, I saw this and it just didn't seem right. And so we can't, I mean, it's a very simple concept, but a very important one, and we can't overemphasize the use of that. If you have a concern, to bring that concern to a professional that can seek out solutions to that concern. So we hope you've spent this 30 minutes with us and found that the school district and the community are working together in tackling these cases of school violence and really helping our children to understand consequences when things like this happen, and also that there is help available if they need that help. Thank you for joining us today on Positive Parenting.